The ARPA was very good in that it provided operating fund. No other grant provided operating fund. One grant we received in the last uh, state legislature, two grants we received in state legislature in the last 10 years, and had no action required. But those were direct, and I don't think there was lobbying for required. I don't know how much, Mr. Davis is paying to do that, but there was a significant amount of funds being paid. Even the grant we just applied for, the 11 million grant, there was at least $100,000, 150 cents to apply for that. We don't have the skills, nor the knowledge, nor again, the operator would have to, which is, and I'm kind of close to it, but obviously, could you pass this on and have the operator? Because again, all the requirements is that they're the ones that are going to decide what equipment they need, and someone has to look for the grants that have to be funded, right? So, and again, we don't have the expertise, we don't have the staff. Like, we had a court director for a while, that was his job to do. But, not that again, there's not that many grants out there, right? So it's not a full time position for for a while. I don't remember how she's the one that got the $2 million grant from the state legislature. I don't remember how her interaction with the court operator was, but I'm assuming there was interaction between the two, right? So again, I mean, I understand that we're somewhat opposed to that, but that's where that's where it's coming from now, right? What grants we're going to apply for, the port operator has to tell us what he needs or what he wants. He needs a crane in 2029. Okay, port operator go out and find the grant for that. But again, you don't have the expertise to do that either.
Can be was it those that's not required and that's not requiring us to be the applicant and to be
Yeah,
some calls.
but again,
Saying it.
well, that was when he was the port operator, who brought everything to the port, and yeah, everything has to be approved. Everything's in Owen's name, absolutely, right? Everything has to be approved here. But it said all those documents were prepared, all the billings were prepared by Valswick, all the reimbursements were prepared by Valswick. They came to our account, but we played almost no role at that point. But again, all the documentation we received when we submit a grant, again, other than the operator, comes from the operator. They had the invoices, they were paid the invoices. Again, all that comes from the operator anyway. So there, again, that so it's very driven by what the operator needs, right? So again, there's no grants that fund our operations. There's no grants that fund, I mean, even Customs House. Again, the question is, what's the operator willing to contribute to that? Can we find grants to fund that? But again, we have to hire someone, or someone needs to look for those grants. None of us here at this table have the ability to do that.
Not in a, not in a considered way. We can all go.
You don't know all.
Well, that's
Correct.
we evolve. That's not, that's not consistent. Confidence.
Well, that
You bring rather than this is what it means. This is how it means. I need to start looking at that and that's what it really writing.
No problem was very well versed in that and could find grants and knew how to do them. And his salary was paid for 3 years and was getting short, but it was also his responsibility to make sure there was money to pay him after 3 years. That was his responsibility, and he would have done that. I feel like he would.
Identify what's the, like, what are we missing out? Because, like, from my vantage point, we took the big slow federal, right? And it's pretty clear that federal rate to me, the fall print you know, that supersedes other federal grants. We can't go this. So then we're back to state grants. It's very obvious to everybody in this room that we pay for a lobbying, not just to represent my interests, but to represent y'all. And I feel like they've done a good job looking under every rock for state funds, recreation dangerous. So I'm trying to figure out like I missed a little, like, what do we miss now? And what is the heavy lifting we what is out there that we're not applying for, and we're not putting best efforts?
I don't think we know.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't think we know what we might miss out on, and speaking of the program, and you guys put a lot of energy, effort, money into that, and thank you guys, you know, it's, can be very beneficial to get it. And Dave's done a great job, securing the money from the state, and kind of working through some of the grants. But a lot of this, and then, come on, I mean, Commissioner Moore, you know, we kind of with Rosanna and I mean, Davison, you know, to really get some of these grants, the applications, you know, submitted. Um, that's where there's not enough time, and that's maybe even our Rosanna's wheelhouse to do. So that's where having an executive director who can do those sort of things would certainly help out. Not just do those, but then also help seek out other grants that we may not know that are out there that exist. So yeah, so we don't. I don't think we know this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, Commissioner Moore, I don't know, the security grant, was well, like, I wrote it wasn't that long, but I realized I could never run a TFTP grant. That's beyond the amount of time I could if I was dedicating everything to that. I think,
Yeah, you know, do it well, but I don't understand it's 100% based on the dollar. It's hardly based on the dollar. The lower the dollar amount, the less detailed the grant application generally would be. And when you start getting up to multi-million dollar grants, then they're gonna be pretty detailed, and they're gonna be pretty specific about what, how they want it done, what they want to see, when they're going to do it. And then also in the back end, once you do get the grant, if you do get the grant, they're gonna be very specific. And, you know, the administrative process, that's why a great administrator would be very important in on the PIE.
yeah,
And that's why they fund it.
yeah, and I realized like if we were to run that green, we'd probably hire someone. You know, that perfect person with a background and projects, but you know, we can have that would really, I don't know, the person's good that can do all of this.
Oh.
You know, having some kind of management that can handle that. I realize because I can't even know Travis does it, you don't. So I fully realize that, and that's why we went back 5% on the grant to basically to fund, you know, later in this week. But I mean, if you want, we collectively, like we all talk Davis, I mean, we can direct their firm to look high on other jihad within the state park. Um, but I still, I'm just trying to understand what are we missing out on? Federal law? Is it?
That wasn't as far as I know, when we put the agenda together and, I don't think it wasn't to identify that there is a problem other than the only problem or issue that at least I know of. And I've spoken with all of the commissioners individually over the last couple of weeks, is that Rosanna, for example, this past, we're all busy, right? But we just had her contract up here and we agreed with her that yes, she's being paid a salary, but she's going to work 35 hours a week and not occasionally there'll be a little bit more, but it'll be for already things that we're doing. This last 60 days, we've had litigation, we've had the PIDP stuff, and that stuff we're hearing from our staff that that's that's the only problem there is. So when there's grant stuff, and if Rosanna or whoever's in that admin position pushes back and say, I just don't have time to do it, it means that it's on the operator. If we don't have court direct, I don't know. I mean, Rosanna can speak for herself in terms of the work pulling.
If I can work them before us.
So, I,
I know Pierre worked on too.
yeah, but I think it has to be, I say that we need, the operator needs to take the lead on grant. I mean, and we need to, again, we're the final approval, we're the approval of the process, because obviously it goes in under our. But as far as identifying grants, again, they've already got a lobbying effort, they've already got an effort, they know they're capital required. We shouldn't be, our involvement should be minimal. There's no, again, there's nothing that we could add to that process. Yes, we can bring in a person separate. They're gonna be duplicating the efforts to a certain extent, but Davis is doing it right now. Right? He's lobbying, he's working on grants from the state of Florida or, whoever else is doing. But again, we should, the operator needs to lead this effort. And we're trying to, Rosanna should have no part in the filing and the actual submission of the application for the federal grant. Again, she was just there. She was taking the information the operator gave her and essentially, yes, it was for ID, could have created a separate ID for the operator and he could have entered the same information under and done it themselves. So there was no reason for us to be involved in that, other than obviously we have to approve that application, which we did at the meeting. Right? That was the meeting that we had, we proved that, yes, we want to move forward with this application. Here's the application we're submitting under the name of OHPA. And as I said, finding these grants, yes, I mean, we can all go on grants.com, but as I said, a formal process of identifying grants, whether it be federal, state, whatever, international, whatever, should be on the operator.
So that's typically, I'm having concerns about delegating official authority to me by my group when it's like technically submitted. I'm just trying to stay informed. Maybe I'm parent.
Well, I think we're having to deal with some serious sort of that. We have had, court operators who, I wasn't on the commission at the time, but, they, took it upon themselves to go down the great road. Down the ground to some of the grant application, but, the commission had no knowledge of it.
Oh, really? I didn't know.
That was one operator out of the last
Yeah.
4. Our
Your predecessor.
Yeah, I was thinking that's fault. I didn't know.
No, there was no,
your previous
yeah, there,
Greg was your predecessor before that.
Big challenge that OPM remains responsible for confirming and certifying that the grant that we apply for meets the requirements, that's accurate, the information is accurate, and that it meets the requirements of the grant. Like, we can't delegate that compliance obligation by contract to a private entity who's also a grant recipient. You won't be able to defend that. Someone who answers to OPA will ultimately answer for whether or not the certifications are accurate. It's oversight of delegated authority, which costs money and time. So at the end of the day, it's still gonna, even if we hire them and say, okay, here's a grant administration, and this is what this looks like. These are the tasks. You guys are gonna invoice this way, which I think we've kind of gotten to with some of our grant agreements for each of the grants that we've won. We do have some examples of grant agreements with the operator. But I think, we can spell all that out. There's still gonna have to be time from Tammy and time from Rosanna, and that's where we need reimbursement for that overhead. That additional time, because the grants can be nothing, but they can be a lot. And we're still gonna have to make those certifications and representations to whoever's giving us that money. And it's still gonna come back to OPA if that's inaccurate. I can, one,
For what it's worth, I mean, the experience that, with federal and state grants that I've had for the city, and then dealing with just outside management companies operating the marina, the golf course. There weren't a lot, but I know, and Miriam is exactly right. You can't delegate that. What I think that I'm hearing OPA and the operators say, though, is that the process of finding grants, writing a scope or a proposed scope, finding the grant agreement and bringing it to OPA for approval, that part of the job of grant development and grant writing is not something, it's not really delegating our authority. Once the grant, if we receive the grant, right, then that's where the rubber meets the road, and that's where the federal government wants to make sure, or the state that wants to make sure that you're meeting the requirements and that the project is. So everything from bidding out the contracts, and because OPA is the grantee on those, all of those contracts have to be with OPA anyway. And they have to come here. I mean, I'm just trying to think of, and really, I'm just gonna just be candid too. If today the board had a better relationship with the operator, more trust, more access to records, with OPA commissioners, and we had a better relationship, then why couldn't the operator be contracted to, do that type of grant? Not administration, that could be somebody, especially for a good one, hired separately. But I don't know.
Well,
I'm trying to like separate the parts where the operator is already doing some of that stuff, yet we have to be, and I know that's what Commissioner Hill's saying too, and then I know legally to be true is that the board cannot be in the dark about anything. But as our contractor, the operator, in addition to, making some of your own decisions regarding operation, is sort of being contracted to do that grant stuff. I don't.
I think it's where layout, the operator do with whatever they choose to develop internally, they identify a brand that they believe that would be good for the port or something that's needed. They in turn come to the commission and say, we've identified this with grants, this is what it is. Here are the due dates, here's the process, and here's why we're going to do it. This is how it's on the plan and strategic plan. What's they need, and then we in turn take that information, review it, and say, okay, go ahead and make the grant application. You guys in turn would write the grant application standards, and then before you submit it, back to us and say, okay, here's the grant, kind of like what we did with
Right.
PMD. Here's the grant application, back, review it. If you believe that it's accurate, it's a good product, it meets things that we talked about previously, that we proved previously, then, if it's Rosanna that has to submit it, because it's coming through, from the port technically, then we'll have a process for that. If it's not, if we can, figure out a way to make, relay terminals, somebody over there, the, grant, don't think we'll be able to, but if we do, then go ahead and submit it. And then we'll wait to review, and then once it gets approved, it comes back. We would probably be the ones that would be notified, notify you that the grant is approved and acting, and, actually work through the process. You would be the administrator of the grant as far as, the contract. Yes, they have to offer a contract that works for us. Identifying contractors to work on the grant, bringing them to us to do the contract. That one, that seems like a workable system. It doesn't seem to be a whole lot different than what we did with the PIDP.
Well, in that how, like, for instance, the spinner replacement grant, is that pretty much how it went?
Yeah.
Make sure.
Well, and again, I mean, every grant has been approved through, right? The operator never submitted a grant. Now, we've had one bad experience with grant. And again, but that was approved by the school board. That was reviewed. Again, we have two grant agreements coming before this board at the next meeting, right? For the Florida grant, which are the FDOT agreements that will be signed by someone for this board. So it's always reviewed by this board. But again, the expert, there's no expertise here. We have to depend on, with something like the offenders, we have to depend on the operator. There's no one on the board capable of understanding, of the details, the engineering, the specifics of that grant, other than the very general parts of that grant. I certainly can't, don't have the expertise to do this. We had one bad experience, and we can't let that cloud. Obviously we have a different operator now. And yes, absolutely, the oversight. They're always on rates. They're always hosted. They're always our name at the end of the day. The contractors are hired by the OHPA. The payments are made through OHPA accounts. So, but as I said, it's happening now. And that's what's happening now. The operator's spending significant funds finding these grants, and it should be his task to find what grants and bring them forward. The OHPA, to me, that is no role playing. That's the operator. Identify the risks you want, wherever you can get them, and bring them forward to propose to the Ocean Island Port.
So I think your scenario you laid out, I think it was a spot on. I agree. It's very similar to PIP. But is this something that maybe the submission of the grants? I don't know how time consuming that is. I mean, and that's where we got an executive director on our side. They would be the ones doing that. But is that something that the operator? I mean, like, we'll kind of get to the point where you were saying that we say yes, this is good to go ahead and submit it. But it's now it's really on us to submit it. What's the
Yeah, they have to have a special authorization for that allows them to submit, for the Ocean Island Port Authority, Rosanna, and at least for federal, is the authorized person that does that. She's got the copy.
Well, she's the point of contact.
Okay.
But you created these the components for the operator to go in. And remember, I mean, there's a certain level of trust here that nothing has changed from what's been approved, right? Because even Rosanna, when she's uploading, she's just uploading information. She's not reviewing it. She's not technically capable of understanding, other than this is what was approved at the meeting for submission. And this is, and again, there's no time when you're uploading because there are time requirements for this. Especially this grant was a certain speed had to be, so there's no, so it's not about, ensuring the accuracy of the bill. It's just pure administrative uploading the information, right? And so there's no, again, what role is Rosanna playing there other than being the ID user? And if we can create a sub ID, what difference is it going to make? Again, there's a certain level of trust there. Again, the information that's approved is what's going to be uploaded.
Is appropriate. And I think that the grant administration agreement is appropriate. Because generally speaking, the operator can have, in our worst case scenario, which we've lived through, I would say for Every single thing that the Port Authority does, whether it's signing a ministerial form, certifying, uploading information and a portal that is a grant you're applying for, those are tasks of the Port Authority, for which they are not responsible. So if they're providing the information to us, and we're just submitting it and we're certifying it, I think we need an administrative agreement that says, for the purposes of this grant, you're going to indemnify us if any information you provide is not correct. That we are performing the service in ministerial capacity, applying for these grants based on the information that you're providing us, or something to that effect. And I think that's totally fair. And I don't think we're the first government entity to do this. So I think to your point, we should trust them to provide the technical expertise to do that. And we should have a agreement in place that would say, this is what we're gonna do. And if there's a small fee attached to that, government administrative costs, something reasonable, we can figure it out. For the time it takes for Rosanna to submit those, invoices, because like I said earlier, depending on the flow of the grant activity, it's either a lot of work or no work. And all the fixed fee and the operating agreement covers is our day-to-day operations. It doesn't cover the scale of what the grants could be. We do get the federal awards we apply for. We worry that those grants are significant, and the application to those grants, which we fully funded, our side of it, her time, Amy's time, my time, whoever other commissioners worked on. We took that out of our administrative budget. We took it away from our employees' day-to-day.
So if you have this indemnification agreement, so I don't disagree with that's fine. What value does, and I Rosanna do that? Into what we put had. Rosanna adds nothing to that. And I'm not denigrating Rosanna, obviously, but again, she
To be involved, like they required OPA to get.
required your signature. It required both for
About invoicing and the whole process, they don't want to get direct. I mean, you can see, I'm not trying to be like negative. But an intentional those calls where they do not want to deal directly with a private community.
we have meetings with that down all the time. Right, so we have a monthly, bi-monthly now,
Like,
meeting with FDOT. And but most of the input from those is from the operator, right? Where the invoice, okay, the operator has to speak to that. So again, I'm just like again the responsibility and obviously if there are leaks. No, absolutely not. No, this it has to be signed off by OPA. It has to be approved by OPA. It has the money, the grant funds have to come back to the OPA account, and we send it back to the operator. The invoices have to be signed by OPA. Absolutely, all that has to come through OPA and contain OPA signatures and things like that. The question is, what value in the process does having Rosanna involved, or even myself to a certain extent involved in submitting grant applications and completing grant applications and, again,
It's a question for the neighbors, the entities that say that only the Ocean Valley Authority and the municipal government can apply response. I think that question is more appropriately found in the very documents that offer funding. In NOVO, it will say, okay, we have to be the ones signing for it.
even city for hire a grant people to write their grants for them.
Here-
Assuming you submit
as
them.
much as it is, because I see what both of you are saying. So you're saying that just by having, again, not to belittle anybody's good work, inputting data, right, Pierre and Rosanna, to just be inputting data doesn't have value in and of itself, other than we're putting OPA's putting its fingers on it as we think that DOT is requiring. But what the granting agencies require is that somebody on our behalf is doing it. So the operating agreement doesn't really cover the grant aspect of this. If for some reason, as I guess it was done in the past, if with one of these indemnity agreements, whatever we want to call it, for a grant that comes up, that we've agreed with the operator, this is how this is going to be handled and administered. And on behalf of OPA, the grantee, the operator agrees to take these actions. If the operator is not otherwise involved, like a grantee or something like that, it's usually OPA, the public agency. The operator is our contractor. And so, I mean, certainly with other agencies, the city and stuff, they have that are working on their behalf. And maybe what some are thinking right now is like working on our behalf, the operator, we have an agreement with them, we're on sort of opposing sides, if you will, with regard to the operating agreement, but there are some things that we can be on. We can be the same, you know, they are our contractor for purposes of, you know, or somebody else, a third party grant administrator. Um, I don't know if it's allowed by them.
And different ones that the operator, but that only governmental entities do. And grants that businesses apply for, grants that nonprofits, the only ones that apply. There's a reason that's put in there. You know, there's a reason that the PIPP is not, yeah, any business that wants that can go ahead and apply. There was a reason they put that in there. There was a reason they said that only governmental entities could apply. And, you know, are we, by allowing the operator to do that, are we creating a situation where effectively a private business is, or could be seen applying for land, as opposed to the government entity, which is what we require, because they're the ones that are submitting, they're the ones that define the payroll of the body, not the government.
Well, it worked great with Laura that did this job, because like I said here, she didn't necessarily get all of the data, but she was presenting to the board regular reports, and she wasn't, she didn't have the same conflict that a direct report employee had. And I mean, you remember the situation with Rhonda, like she was supposedly like certifying the grants in our behalf, we had never received a report. And she worked for a former operator, and she was his, and she had certified all the grant applications and reports that she was certifying on his behalf. And everything was accurate. We'd never received a report, we never received a statement. And so like if we want to set up regular reporting and to have some that have full transparency, great. I mean, I'm not gonna argue with who's gonna do for the 10 key.
And I would, and the only person would be, no, like I said, they're a contractor, we're indemnifying, but they are on, we delegate just like Lord Development, not an employee employee. For, she was paid $10,000 as a contractor to act on behalf of the board. She's not in any way other than that $10,000, you know, that payment. That was her, just to serve as board director for the State Council and to apply to search out grants. Right. So again, to me, it's still different. And again, I say this because that's the way it worked prior to with Val Quinn. They pretty much handled everything grant. They brought it to the board when it needed to be approved and things like that. But as I said, that was quick. Now, again, I would say our grant volumes has, from the days of Val Sweat to today, had tenfold, 20-fold, 30-fold. I mean, you know, with Kim Gordon was here, they were not interested in investing additional funds in the port. They wanted to pay off the debt. That was their goal. You know, they were interested in investing in significant amounts. So again, our activity in grants has increased significantly, no doubt about it. You know, so, but that again, Val Sweat took all that on, took the, you know, prepared the reimbursement requests, all that. So
Okay, so the operator, Good, I was gonna-
So I just want to say, I don't mind, submitting the grant applications. It's just that, I cannot do the narratives because I don't know the details of the projects at the port. So the difficulty I encountered is asking the operator for narratives and answering the questions of the grants in time to submit it. And so I didn't have one contact from the operator. It was, I'm contacting Davis, Ted, and Travis. So in the past, though, Kyle Clark worked with me in answering all the grant questions and submitting it. So and I only found those grants that we applied for recently through the Florida Ports Council. When we attended the meetings, they talked about, oh, this is available. The ILC is a rolling application. So I presented that to the operator to consider applying, but I don't have the time to search for the grants. I don't.
And you should, and that really, that's, should fall on the operator. Or that's what I think that should fall on the operator.
It shouldn't, but I just like, I want to also acknowledge that the port needs significant investment. I mean, we need a lot of infrastructure in this city. And I don't think we can just say like, it's yellow shut, do our job. Like, I think we need to be raising the alarm, like, we should be doing federal money. We all need to be acting like our first and fire. From the fact that the folks in the United States straight. It's on the high, that community. And oil on resident rates and how, like, I mean, we need to be very serious about it, and we can say that it's just a, that I think it has to be a product.
And how commonly, we on water, you know, PhDs here, we want water. So basically, we're going to happen. Yes, we should not. So I think it's really like it's the process and the time for Rosanna, because again, you know, talking about her agreement for time, and how much she's putting in, she's doing so much extra work because we don't have an executive director. And she's been doing that for a while now. And then going back to communication, you know, she's trying to request narratives and some information. And so, you know, that process, maybe kind of flush that out, see what it looks like. But maybe it's where the operator applies for the grants. They, you know, Scott's Mr. Moore's scenario, but then once it gets down to submission, if the operators do it, if they can, if the grant has to be directly from us, you know, we figure out, we figure out, you know, can they do it or just like Portobello with doing, but again, that takes a lot of that work. It's gonna take that work off of Rosanna. As far as other funding and you know, legislative law and all that, I agree 100%. That really falls on us as well to be out front trying to get funding for a lot of these structure things.
But Truman, we were talking about the operator applying for grants on our behalf. Doesn't that need to be in, like, I think that needs to be in contract.
Yes.
Yeah, no, absolutely. 100%.
Yes. I mean, all of this to, you know, is really I think going to lead everything that we talked about tonight and some of the decision or consensus, if you will, that I'm hearing in my mind is going to be reduced to writing. It's not necessarily, I mean, probably be a list of sorts, right? But then, and shared with the operator for sure. And what agreements are gonna come out of this, or what ones can we expect in the future? Certainly, the very next grant that comes up, and if it is last minute, then there may be, and they shouldn't be, but sometimes something, occurs to you and we have a month to apply, then we need to potentially have or convene a special meeting to, I'll whip up an agreement, and we can't necessarily wait till the next regular board meeting. So three of you are available, at least that's a quorum, and we can get an agreement together. So that's what I expected for sure.
Well, then,
Yeah, Mr. Chair, um, and Rosanna, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm putting words. Was the Ebsted application the most time consuming? Ones that what you're referencing here?
Well, the PIDP as well.
Okay. Because I mean, I'm working with you on that
Yeah.
Ebsted grant. I know um, it was complicated. We were working out an Excel doc. We didn't have it. It wasn't an actual application. Just I think it could help, help the board understand that, that CSIP program is not a piece of paper that we can then go fill out. It was a actual portal that we had to go in and copy and paste all the questions so that we could fill out and try to get you answered. Because I know we were operating out an Excel document from the prior year, and the questions had changed from year over year, or at least it altered. So we had incomplete answers and responses. And what Pierre is saying, I don't think it's the board's decision. If there was, I think we could take a lot off of you if there was a way for us to access those things. And there may be a legality reason for FDOT may say no way. I don't know. But I think that was a lot of the time consuming parts. But I mean, there are a lot of grant applications that really is a piece of paper that we can fill out, give you, and it's a submittal process. So, and I think we've done a good job. And again, I hear Commissioner Moore and that boards will, almost like a pre-approval. This is what's coming down the pipe, and okay, that sounds good to the board. Let us go forward and present. I know we have presented numerous grants to this board for approval before. And I think, it's time of conversation because I think there are going to be some more coming down the pipeline. So, just want to provide that context of, sometimes, especially when it comes to CSIP and FSTED, it's not like a paper document print out and show ourselves and okay, let's fill this out. It's a portal where you have to click the next page to see the next question. So that really is a time suck because I know you have to go and copy and paste, copy and paste, copy and paste. I think at a year of doing that, it will be better moving forward, especially on that specific one. Because I know that was extremely time consuming. We were working at midnight to 1 a.m. on it.
Yeah.
So just want to provide the context.
thank you, appreciate it.
Before we, we're moving one about this.
I get it, but okay.
Before we wrap this up, let's point out particularly two things. My mantra, work is over. It's not just the words. There are a lot of differences. There are other things that we should be, by legislation, should be involved that are not important. Some of those may have grant opportunities. We need to be cognizant of that when we say, for operators, there may be grant opportunities for other things outside of the work.
So like, I mean, either,
Well, that are outside of the consumer funding.
I mean, yeah, right, but yes, we have so much maybe wrong.
And then to make things a little bit more confusing, well, there was an executive order that was released the beginning, middle of August, and to do with administration members. I don't want to continue in that. If control bottom of the federal government and what the other side means. I don't know how it impacts some of the rent signal level, but maybe some changes in that we do the overhead cost.
Other comments, questions? Tim, you got stuff?
No, the only thought that I had, and this is just putting it out there for, certainly Commissioner Cole and, well, most of you have weekly contact with people all over the county and, the Nassau Economic Development Board. Has any, I mean, Rayonier, that's just a big business, right? That I'm thinking of big companies like that, the Crawford Diamond area, all of that. Has anybody, gotten this board together with those folks to say, how can we help you? And help us have a presence outside of the island for your industrial. I don't know. I mean, for,
We have all kinds of services that don't know more we can do, longing, just different companies.
Yeah.
And there have been a couple of people who were interested in it, but nobody was engaged. But we did have several that looked at what OPA could do in a bond grant for them.
Mhm. Okay. I mean, some of, that's the thing, until we grow some and we have more capacity to have more staff to be able to do that. And those opportunities are there, we know it, but without somebody to do that legwork, and it takes a lot of time, we're not gonna be able to capture those, I don't think. I know,
We can't go out a $10 million public-private partnership if you don't have capacity to do that.
yeah, oh, I know,
So beyond grant money, beyond, bonding.
can we advertise? Seriously, I'm dead serious.
Sure.
Can we ever advertise our, I mean, just food for thought for commissioners?
But I would think, any sort of public-private partnership at this level for each time would need to be a small, which, is certainly not wrong. It contributes to the economic viability of the county. It provides jobs to other small businesses in the county. But, at this point, looking at Crawford Diamond and trying to become a public-private partnership and a $20 million venture at Crawford Diamond, we certainly couldn't handle that. But, a small business that might enter into some sort of public-private partnership with us, you could probably better, service something like that.
A toll at the bridge.
Don't we go to nowhere? Well,
It's,
take the other ones and do that. I gotta pay for it.
oh, yeah, no, I'm not, it's just,
It's a great question, like, what are we doing to develop that opportunity, because it is something that's helped, I think scrubbers at West Rock for funding with some bonds, OPA bonds. And then Marina was a good project, the Lauderdale Bridge. So there is opportunity, and I think it's a fair point, but you should be doing more to develop that potential opportunity, having maybe we host, a round table, maybe we, like you said, advertise. I do sense that we've kind of got stale in the way we present that concept in our existing channels. We feel like we've offered it, everyone's interested, and obviously there's new opportunities to have different discussions with different folks. Like there's always turnover and we've always
especially now, I mean, we know the light is on our county statewide and for all different reasons. And so, it just seems to me that those are opportunities.
Well, we're going to limit our opportunities by gesture with the economic development. Say,
The move more aggressively chain of commerce. See if we would set up, some sort of round table with them, bring in, businesses looking for seed money.
That's more than Chamber of Commerce. It's more than Nassau Economic Development. Board. That's been my experience.
I'm not too sure. Do a great job. They need to be in credit from. They seem to be focused on larger projects. You know, things like probably done with large companies coming in, you know, to occupy the footprint. Whereas chamber seems to be focused more on small businesses or small business development.
Right.
You know, like I said, at this point, you know, we can't buy Rainier for a 7.2 billion.
Right.
So,
Oh, it's gotta be.
Pocket money.
It's great when we've been around and, you know, and there's a lot of other organizations are out and with your, you know, interests, you know, chambers are great, so that's good.
And I mean, throughout the year, you have opportunities for the Nassau County Economic Development Board. And by the way, I haven't been appointed yet, so I'm not speaking in that capacity at all, but the Nassau County, you can have budget amendments throughout the year. Perhaps if that is our best bet, and if you think there's anything to get from that you actually, or at least one OPA commissioner, so that she's not put on the spot, talk to Sherry Mitchell and say, look, you know, providing our money, there are specific things we want to be involved with, we want to be considered for. And you know, if we're not saying it, we're an afterthought, right? I mean, nobody's thinking about the OPA's ability to do conduit bonds. I mean, except when it came up specifically. Otherwise, they're forgetting it. And so something that is going to keep us out there and on the mind. Okay, I'm done.
Yeah, and the thing about it, it's the university really important, do a lot of, leveraging their students to solve real world problems. And they did an installation in TU recently, where they had solved traffic issue for FDOT, and they used students to do it, like we're always talking about, which they had an intern. That's another way is for stay current, what's going on in the region, and they love to lend their students for efforts like solving real world problems.
Alright, so moving on, tab 7C, US Customs and Border Protection Facilities improvements and associated grants.
So this was a part of the list that I suggested, not because I had anything specific in mind, other than we have two grants. Two, right? It was on your spreadsheet. I tried to memorize the spreadsheet. There are two grants and three, okay. And so I just thought I would put this on here. Where are we? Where are we going? And thoughts and comments from the operator in terms of moving forward. Because my understanding, as I've got my head around this, is that we have a historic building, yikes, you know, but it is what it is, that needs improvements, and the Customs and Border Protection folks are saying that they need a facility that meets their standards, right? Their minimum standards. So how do we get to where we're going, and how is the operator participating? Because since Savage and Relay have come in, this is sort of, it seems to me, has ramped up because the grants are there. It's time to start the first project, right? And how is the operator going to participate?
So this is it 2.7, what was the cost? Total cost when we started 8 years ago, 2.7.
Okay.
And that increase, it's 2.7 now, or 2.7 then.
I wonder when we came up. Was that one?
I think the board came up with that.
Earlier was that just? No, hey, 2.7.
I think that was third, that Coughlin and his research, the valves came up with that figure.
Probably saw this amount of cost in that study, the one that in the site study. I'm sure that's the lowest down that study.
It wasn't pulled out of the air.
Well, looking at study, that's fine, that's where did it, there's like 5 options. And then more sure the top. Either E, where. While the chairs and one of the other options fall. But it's in. Maybe it's in. So.
It was, I think that was preferred by the career, that option, the warehouse we have versus a new facility. So the new facility warehouse right now. And I think Commissioner Colwood was on a committee, so he was in meetings with customs, they have. Very detailed requirements, they presented very lengthy presentations on the grades, so for 15, 20 people on these calls. With engineers, with, someone from, I don't remember who it was at that point. With, as a.
Yeah, so I brought this up with the FDOT secretary director, said, I need advice here, because. It's very clear what has to happen, right? Like, we need these guys here, we're gonna on so rent, everything else that got some of the steps up. No, I don't know, foresee that happen. But so, like, for state appropriations, I mean, I think we can get more out of there, so. Listen, you and your staff have a plethora of experience in what you do, we all kind of. Rolled their eyes and said that, you know, this, I told a little story, this is, that we should not remember about us. I know, you know, we're, the boards are required in these facilities, and so. They, you know, they promised to lend us help. I know the business secretary set up, up in, this one, in my.
Um, so kind of pause on the grant funds for a second and really want to thank FDOT and Secretary Radu and Assistant Secretary Fitzpatrick because they would be helpful on this issue. This issue is not just at the Port of Fernandina, it's a nationwide, especially in Florida and Louisiana, where there's states with a lot of ports. And Commissioner Moore was first on this a while ago. There's a federal piece of legislation filed by Congresswoman Laurel Lee. It's the US DPP State Act. And basically asking federal government to step up and understanding this is a critical component for our national security and the safety of our communities, but that there's been a burden shift onto the port operations, airports, seaports. FDOT has worked closely with other ports on this same issue, and that there is guidelines that they're going to help us with, including working with their own congressman and his staff to help bring him to the table, understanding that there is something needs to be done, but there is rules that have been passed and recommendations from the prior funding year. And I can provide this to you all, but it specifically gives or tells CBP that they are expected to work in partnership with seaports and refrain from imposing requirements on seaports in a unilateral fashion. And CBP shall refrain from reducing hours of operation at any land port or in a port of entry unless CBP can demonstrate that the reduction in hours will not be local or regional commerce. And so working with them to find a solution, because the list of their requirements is burdensome. My own opinion. And so FDOT has experienced this before and has offered to help us navigate this with the total understanding of we have acquired close now to include the required matching funds close to $900,000 from this facility. And working through TED and lack of state appropriation, a possibility of asking for more. There's some funding mechanisms being put towards this, but FDOT would very graciously wants to help with this issue to find some type of middle ground with CBP, understanding that their job is absolutely critical to our interest, our country's interest, but that there's got to be middle ground. So that process, we've reached out. We have talked to Congressman Bean, Looking at staff to set up times, letter support, try to get everybody into a room, hopefully sometime soon to see what we can come up with.
Yeah, I was saying, I mean, personally, like, represent my company, I understand the critical of, this friends on the better side of the aisle, of the role of play, receiving them for dead, right? And I know we're going to be called to step up to help funds. I get it. Like, who have to match, leave the message great. So, just want to make it clear that I know we're going to take it all on. But what I'm trying to do is fully understand, are there options? Is there flexibility? You know, how do we make this make sense? And so, yeah, it's been tough for me because, I can't go talk CDP directly. Can't do that. And then on the other side, I see these numbers, I give in the space study that we put, that's pretty cool. And I like that. That's all I'm seeing. So, I can share and say, hey, first of all, we get all of us funding about the facility, there's training, counts. That's the first one. The second half is, okay, why so much? Right. So I just want to be clear about, I want to march forward, I want to get a political resolution, I want to get this off our achievements, because we're rolling, but it's just sort of, I need a lot more context, I need this stuff, feeling this local.
May I, Mr. Chair? So, and I am gonna just put you on the spot so we can get over this one thing. Um. So there, it sounds to me, and this hasn't always been the case, that there's a commitment on the part of the operator to make sure that we have the CBP facility at the Port of Fernandina. Because, and the reason I say that and putting you on the spot is because every one of the commissioners sitting up here, Mr. Laporte, myself, I'm still learning. I assume it's true. I haven't done my own independent research. That in order to be a port of entry and do the business that we're doing, we have to have Customs and Border Protection on site, not visiting from Jacksport. And so if you can't answer that tonight, we need to know that because these commissioners have all chewed my ear off about it is a port of entry. We have to have the facility. There's no question. So we at least have to agree or not agree that that facility has to be here.
Secondly, is that, I feel like I know we have to have a certain officer all of a sudden to borrow and leadership and more. But is there a better way to handle this without having holding yourselves all the three?
I got you. And I think
I
that,
want to find
and I'm assuming that part of what you all are doing then is looking into that because all of the commissioners here have been told, and I submit that Commissioner Moore probably has more information than all of us about it, that we have to have. Otherwise, the Port Authority has no interest either in spending $2.7 million. And we have to do something with the building, but because it's historic and we can't demo it. But we need to know the facts then because all of us are under the impression it has to be this way. That's why we've been going down this road. And I guess, I mean, do some of these grants, do they expire? I mean, are we going to be in any, I know they eventually do, but are we getting in any danger zone time thing with this?
Thank you for 2026. I don't have it.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
first is a 25.
The expiration date.
Oh, expert.
Yeah, I just meant because, we go exploring things and I understand and we need to know what the options are. Yeah, and just because I don't want anything, I don't want to get in trouble with the granting agency.
what I'm doing is we just go with off the scope of work because we have to spend the grant. Like I'll roll it into a large effort so we're getting even more efficient with calls. Like rolling all in one big plan versus okay, let's go do this. Like I write a check for $50,000. Then we start another process. That's another check, and then we finally do the whole thing because everyone to roll all together. And that's why you know, that's why we pay a lot of. That's why he can help us, knock down some of the doors, help, just sort of cut through the noise and get what exactly needs to be done.
Yeah, the first one, it's for this fiscal year, but I believe it has an expiration in 2026. I know Pierre, and our conversation with that, based on what I've heard, has asked for the scope of work, wanted it to be broad so that it could potentially cover more things than just one. But I think the first one just opened, and so you talk about there's three. There's the first one's an FSTEM one. There's a state appropriation that would be in this fiscal year. But and then the third one is another FSTEM grant that doesn't open until 2026. So one is more pressing than the other, but there's an expiration in 26, I believe, without having it.
So the very next thing,
Yeah, we apply for the rule of tribal land. That have, you have your name.
right, these are the ones that are out. So just in general, there's a scope of work that for the very first grant that will expire. And so before, and again, the operator is supposed to prepare the scope of work. So it sounds like there's some research and things that you want to do first to try to find options. How can this board help you with that? And then my next question is, when can we expect a scope of work or another option to consider?
For the first one, they decided the scope of work. And it's not necessarily plan, yeah. You know,
Okay, chat.
I guess the scope of work means that Davis's version description, which would allow more opening on the back.
Right.
You know, any residual funds to be rolled into the activity structure.
So what's the next thing that we have to address on?
That's, we just received, I believe it's emails all,
Mhm.
the FDOT grant agreements. The next step is signing, approving, and this board signing the FDOT grant agreements. That is when, once those are signed, we can start spending on those grants. So, we just got that.
This afternoon.
Or this afternoon. Yeah, so.
So there isn't a scope of work that's coming due?
Well, I asked, but I guess Mr. Laporte reviewed the scope that I had, and I just submitted that because I wasn't hearing anything else from anybody. And FDOT was asking for disclosure. So,
That's for this facility.
correct.
Is that not pretty rare?
No, it was for the first two up there.
So you've done, the second one's finished too.
Yeah.
Right, so the security grant, that came from, you guys,
From them, yes.
yeah, the scope of work for the security grant, because this for the security grant, the question was, well, what do you guys want to do with this money? And that's what, again, the scope of work needs to include, what do you
Right.
need to be broad enough to cover what's spending on light?
I thought we committed the verbiage.
And we,
Right.
Really wrong. Maybe not.
which is, again, all, yeah, all covers, and the scopes can be expanded, kind of, again, with negotiations through FDOT, stuff like that. But most of the FDOT grants, we have a couple of years for. Now the state of Florida grant, that's the different, I don't know when that expires. The FDOT grants, again, they want us to start spending on them, but, just like the one we have now, the fender grant, we haven't spent anything, it expired in March. No, I'm just saying. I'm just saying, it's been around. We're waiting for the stuff to arrive, but that grant expires in March of 2026. But it's been around for 50 years, right? So it's not, again, the FDOT grants usually have about 3 years to find this for life. Again, the state of Florida grant, I can't say. So it's a little bit different.
That one started in 2021.
Right, so it's 5 years.
Is there anything else that we need to do so that it's not appearing on every single agenda? The That was my question to,
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing.
yeah, the CPP,
You know,
yes.
I need help. Just closing the doors and someone getting like, hey, what, like, where did the moon come? The 2.7, where did that come from? And it really be, what are the options? They really stuck on the one thing.
Mhm.
Are there options that we can have CDP protection that we've already need for without expending it's gonna be 3.3 this fall, $1 million. Is there another way that still gets us to the same place? I don't know, because I can't talk to tribes that you didn't know.
From the port authority's perspective then, and we have no choice because you're the operator and you're coming up with funds too, is that this board has been there, done that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and before my time, been there, done that, but now we're taking a pause. So what can OPA expect to be the amount of time? I'm not pressuring you. I'm saying realistically, how much time so that every meeting we're not bringing up and commissioners are like, yeah, what about and what does the operator think? We know you're working on it. When can you come back with maybe, if it's a different option, say, hey, I'm the new kid in town. I think this option is better. And I'd like,
I can't see the option, but I can't talk to CBP directly. Only open to talk to CBP about this. So
We have, I mean, we have the documents that I mentioned, you see, or I would think you see, but, when the presentation, the presentation
I see.
process and all that. I mean, I would think that through Savage, and, really, you would have information that I might call it from now. So you came again kind of midway through, you worked through all this with Greg, who was ready to go, excited about it, but I understand your reservation, just trying to get information. So it sounds to me like you need the information that you may not have. What at all.
and I think he's saying it may be straight from CBP that we would get that information.
Yeah, so I mean, I had a, was it supposed to be monthly reminder call? But
Yes,
15 people.
Yes.
yeah,
I think Commissioner Moore has resigned from that role because of his new role.
But it's back to, we started having, meeting where had been approved and disappeared together. Soon we would get the money, which should happen, so after, over 3 months, I think it was, up to report, before,
Yeah.
they, for some. I've got your contact information as soon as we, get authorization to start, files, I'll be meetings. And that's it.
Right now, in October, 10 2, it's like those meetings have 15 people. So, I think it would be really helpful. We had a commissioner who spearheaded and got us along with, or 2 people who were actually in charge of CPP for region. And let's just, hey, here's the agenda, here's looking at me, here's the climate right now. Do you have to be all stuck in there? Okay, fine. And then like if I can just explain it always, then it's way easier than me just saying, I don't really know, man. You just need a lot of money to construct this and nobody can really explain why.
And that's something that Dr. can help us with, and that we're working through getting a meeting together of the minds, with our federal partners. So when that happens, hopefully as well, because that thought would be helpful in this endeavor. We want to see CDP, get what they need to do their jobs, within reason. And I think that's kind of the next step. I don't, it probably won't happen by the next open meeting. But understanding the urgency of it as well.
If you were designing a chart and what examples on what we have to do with our organize, you should probably look at how CDP is doing. You've got,
I mean, a lot of people.
oh, great comments. Not counting people, yeah, it's like, facility construction and oversight. That, depending on the specific function of that facility or that organization or that location, different people may be involved in different things from different offices related to the exact same project. When you go down the road and do the exact same building, and those people are not involved at all. Somebody could put involved.
And I do think it's worth noting that it's been discussed long before our time, my time, Ted's time, a lot of the board's time. There is traction moving. I mean, you're talking almost $1 million in grant. It's not going to get us there. It's not going to get us there overnight. But there are things in the system coming, and showing the steps being taken. Well, in that though, that was going to be my question. Was we were successful with getting $350,000 from this one state legislature, and I don't know how many of us had conversations. I know I've had conversations with Representative Black and Senator York, where most of you have seen that, where they're saying, "Hey, we want to help, we want to help. How are things moving along?" They want to help, and so I don't know if that's in the plan, in Relay's plan to go back to town and see and lobby for more state appropriations. All in favor of pulling down when we can. It was 350 this time. Next time, maybe sure if it's more, because they're again they're excited to help. They want to help. They see the need there for me. And so I think that's something we certainly capitalize.
I mean, so someone needs to be replaced, Commissioner.
Mr. Hill.
Yes.
Okay, so
See this? Was this good? 142 page.
Dollars. Right?
So
Commissioner,
Yeah, so the modular option bill. And redo. TV.
I think Commissioner Hill, you need to, again, identify the CBP people and facilitate a meeting between the operators so that we get these questions answered. I mean, I think legitimately, before we start talking, I understand what the operator is saying. Before we start talking about billing, is there options? I mean, the CBP has presented that they need to talk to Hall, and that's the only option. They have to have all the bells and whistles, showers, JFL, blah, 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 blah. Is there, I think the operators ask, is there alternative to that? What would the impact be if we do that? And Jacksonville, again, all those kind of questions that only CDP and maybe just with who's an officer parent here locally, maybe able to don't know, maybe able to answer those questions locally as a start of the conversation. But I think that's where, again, before we get into the
I mean, it's just going to Jacksonville, see Jim Shell and see the facility there. Because I think it would give you some idea, like point of reference. There's no locating agency in that space, and they do vision. I think it's helpful to go and see it and just talk to them. And there's nothing like walking in and someone else's office. You're comparing clients, say, up on the rocks. I said, no, I'm yours. Because if you want to see how their facilities function in a different environment, they have another facility, they're willing to take you there, go. I'm happy to do that.
yes.
Just a note, when this all started, was in the fall of 2022. From 18 to 22, first office promised on an annual basis that something would be done with that office. It was not. They finally broke and sent word to me. Either start a process or we're pulling the inspectors back to Jackson. Period. Okay, a lot of questions went across the board, but can you just send them up there to shifts? No. Not gonna happen. So we started a dialogue, and I was told point blank, and it was brought back to this commission. As long as we see progression to get where we need to be, we'll be patient. Mind what I just said. For 4 years, they were told, we're gonna take care of this. It's what you need. Zero came from. So now you can understand where they're looking. Now we're going back downhill. It's not gonna be good for us. I can promise you that. Because I've worked with those folks in Jacksonville. They don't say stuff and then don't mean it or back it up, I promise you. So what I'm saying is, we got to get this going. Now, I was point blank, because I asked the question, is there some way we can downsize? They looked at me like I had three heads. They said, no, because half Miami, Tampa, Port Everglades, couple other ports they mentioned off. How can we require them to have their standard here and let you get away? That's their explanation, not mine, I'm just sharing it. So to go into a meeting with them thinking that, well, we're just gonna give you this, not gonna happen. They have a standard. They want all of their locations to have that same standard. Now, if you would like, you and I can talk with the board's commission. I'll, because I know some of those folks down there, and if you want to see the facility, fine, and get the explanation from them, just like Commissioner Gill said, get it from the horse's mouth. Then you see what you're going to be working with, but they're not going to come off of their requirements. I can tell you that now. They will pull those people off of North Third Street, take them straight back to Jackson. At that point,
They will shift, this agree to meet with the Jasper location, they may finish what they're doing in Jasper and then start driving.
But I think, but I disagree with you. The problem is Port of Miami, Port Everglades. You're talking about a facility that moves hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars over the contract versus a facility like Port of Virginia. And to expect those two facilities to have the same capacity is, well, I understand that. Again, that's the government. We have,
It's not the same difference. There's, depending how they might have to go, their name is much larger to talk about.
with real,
Then take that, 200 people when you there, you do it on. That's number of officers out there, you know how many times they go out and check the visual tape, and they plug that into their thing. And, they plug that into the machine, and it spits out, here's what you need, this facility to service that many ships, that many officers. This is what you need, here to say, go here, this is what you got.
It's already you stop on instructions. That's on that. He's boring. I'm saying, I'm not trying to weasel out either. I just need information, understandable. And then if I have an understanding of what's going on, maybe we be strategic because I get it.
So go to the last page of that 142-page document that you said you have. And that is the breakdown of $2.8 million. It's a cost matrix, it's a year and a half old. I don't know what else to tell you. It's the last page. It has a cost matrix. If you want detailed engineering plans, that costs more than $33,000 for a page system switch. That's gonna cost more. So if you want detailed engineering plans, that's what we apply for, it's us grant, and that was what, $300,000 for detailed engineering plans?
Yeah, actually,
So let's merge your plans.
planning phase would be.
Let's move to that next phase, and there's unknown unknowns, we'll discover the engineering process. We're not gonna be unreasonable, but I don't think we should be asked to go back to the drawing board and reevaluate our options when the board's already done all the work. I know that there's turnover, but we do have a record of what was done, we have meeting minutes, we have a very, I think, thorough report. And maybe when we go through the engineering process, we'll identify things that are the highest cost items in the plan, and we can take those like high cost items and go, look, this is 20% of the project cost. What can we do? I mean, even schools don't have bulletproof glass. You've got 3 officers assigned here, what needs to be bulletproof? You want all walls to be bulletproof? And our elementary schools are not bulletproof? Elementary schools.
Explosion.
Yeah, explosion. So, maybe there's opportunities.
Sure. So speaking of communicating with CBP, whenever I scheduled a Teams meeting with CBP, I was given a list of people that needs to be on that list. And the operator has been invited. I see Mr. McNair, Zitrar, and Mr. Bean on that list. So I think Mr. Bean, you've attended. So that's the time to communicate with CBP is our Teams meeting. So, attend the meeting and ask your questions because those are the people. We haven't scheduled one.
Let's schedule,
Okay.
let's schedule that for the next 2 weeks. And then at that time, we'll try to get a invitation. We'll invite ourselves to Jacksonville and Commissioner Nelson is supposed to go.
Yeah, just give me a time
Great.
and date to give to Miss Gibbons and see if her staff or her team can join in. But she specifically gave me about 15 people to include in the team's meet. There's a lot.
Well, I'm not arguing, you all are before you decide. The secretary of that has asked us to go down a path. I think if you guys would give us a week to try to explore that, before reaching out to CBP, it would be helpful. But again, we can accelerate our conversation as fast as state government will move.
So you're trying to get federal dollars to fund the project or what?
It's possible. I know there have been conversations with other seaports, who are in a similar position, that have made headwinds by having a conversation.
I say we go, so
Then again, I don't think it will happen by the next open meeting, but knowing that we're in the holiday season, we're losing meeting date to discuss this. I will do everything I can to try to align the stars and include Commissioner Hill, in that with her being kind of the CDP liaison.
I say we move forward on those tracks, like set the meeting in the next 2 weeks or so, and that way there's time for both things, right?
Yeah.
I would think that having teams meeting, especially in light of the approval of the scope of work or the imminent release of funds that that would be the good reason for having that meeting. To keep CDP involved in the loop box. And then Davis and his team could work the legislative from that kind of.
I would say as long as we keep them advised of what's going on, so that it looks like we're continuing that progress to the goal.
It was in July.
So
Yeah, okay, so
you have to make sure they see progression, because they reiterated that to me. If we don't see any progression, we're gonna snatch those men from us. And once they do, it's not gonna be, oh, shucks, we'll send them back to the money. That ain't gonna happen.
Okay, so, it's your call, your path, and it be, so hopefully consider later and then. To you.
And this letter up, can we stop? Project, I mean, I know it's getting involved for me, legal counsel, it's not a binding document in their opinion. Maybe.
No, she hasn't addressed this with me at all. The 2018 document? No,
Well,
that doesn't mean that she doesn't have an opinion, but she's not addressed it with me yet.
yeah, I mean, she told me she doesn't think that's a legally binding document. It's a bad look. I wasn't aware of the document. It is a bad look. Fire operator. But it's a form of acknowledgement. You don't believe it's binding in nature. So, I mean, is there a reason it's brought up here?
No, just that that's part of our,
Okay.
no, part of the commitment.
Got it.
I mean, from our point of view, that's what this board has been.
Streamlines, one thing.
Yeah,
Kind of,
no, it's just us in here, really. I mean, so.
Ready to move on, tab 7, D, facility use fee sharing insurance premiums.
This is just something that we have not, and it's really as much as Ted, you wanted to speak about this part and where we are. We have facility use fee. Of course, we're in year 7, right? And we're kind of year 8.
Yeah,
Just started. So year 8 just started. And so we get a portion of the facility use fee, but then also discussed in the operating agreement is the OPA's payment of property casualty insurance for the port, which I think the premium came in at about $45,000 annually. So no facility use fees have been remitted that I know of to OPA because that issue is still outstanding.
I think the property insurance is more like 400.
Yeah, it's way more important.
That's more like 4.
I thought it went from, she gave us a reduced number.
Yeah. 15 down to like 2 million or something.
Maybe about 104,000. Well, the report they sent me,
Mhm.
just asked for.
100, okay,
104,000.
I was going from memory, but
So, yeah.
there's insurance
More like
money
400.
that under the operating agreement, once Opus starts receiving facility use fees, then we have the obligation to pay for property insurance. And so I guess the premium, the market is more favorable to insured this time, so there was a reduction. And that is still not been resolved. So one of the things I think I shared with the board is that I argued to Amy Polson that there's a requirement before we are paying property insurance that we should have $50,000 in the account as that. And that's not.
For the record, I agree.
Oh, great. And so anyway, so 50,000 has to be in the account and then we can start our facility use fee arrangement. And then we have to, OPA has got to pay property premiums. And I don't know how those numbers, I don't know what the facility use fee is. And then what the,
Yeah, it's all, I mean, every spreadsheet and everything. So basically, you want acknowledgement. $50,000 in one time, and then B, after that's paid, you know, we can move the money to open account and we'll first, the first withdrawal from that to be reimbursed. Sure. Minus the 3% have been, it's in the outline. So you only get 3% will be the lump sum. Like, this thing is drug on way too
Right.
right? It's causing lawsuits, so I'm trying to think ahead on, that's what I thought, and it's like acknowledgement.
I was just gonna say, this has all got to be reduced to writing so that we understand that. And right now what we have is the letter from Amy say, and then my response, and then just a phone call. So we got a letter from her in spring, months and months ago. And so at this point, I'm happy to do a letter back. And as we discussed at the meeting, this is our understanding. Okay. Do I copy this?
Should this be a withheld sum, or should this be an invoice sum? So in other words, shouldn't we get the facility use fee? And then for the property insurance, you invoice us with a bill?
I think this is in this way, I just want to acknowledge that we are going to be reimbursed.
Yeah, I would say, I,
The right left balance of the account. And the bond.
And that's what, yeah, that's what.
so I have to say, so obviously, all we asked for because I just received it, obviously we have to put it on those fees that are payable to us. And obviously it was spent on insurance or again, whatever we want to be. And so I just received the report because I requested from TJ, the report, for, the facility use fees collected to date based on the operating agreement. And as I said, and so it doesn't, it would go in a separate account anyway. And really, all I'm talking about is you come in and go back out as insurance immediately.
Well, after the 50, then
Yeah,
takes 3%.
yeah. And again, when you send us 3% and just keep the rest, again, all we need is reports to
Well, that's
put
the
it on.
question. How does the law? It's the same question. How does the meeting law?
To me, you should just keep it running. That's a lot. You would just remit 3% to us, the 50,000 first, then 3%, and then the rest until.
Well, I'm not looking at the agreement, so I'm not gonna commit to, why don't we do that? Well, first, we're talking here like the technical stuff and does the OPA commission understand we're gonna bring something back at the next meeting, in writing about this? And so do you understand kind of what, not that you don't understand, but what we're talking about is one fee, the facility use fee, not the tariff, not the new tariff, the facility use fee that year 7, OPA is entitled to 25% of what's collected, minus off of OPA's 25%, the property insurance. That's the only thing that we're discussing. And so with regard to 50,000 in section 6, the agreement, I forget which 6.1, 6.2, 6.3, it talks about $50,000. It's poorly written. We all agree with that. But that's what I had argued to Amy Polson is money that we need to have before OPA's going to need to pay any property insurance. And OPA gets to use that money for whatever you want to use it for that has a public purpose. So if that's the pilot fee, if that's whatever else you're going to use it for. So that is going to be the proposed letter agreement that I send to the operator. And then the best thing is if you agree with those terms, this is just what you said, 50,000 facility use fee,
The 1,000,
50,000 annually, or is it just one time?
where you use
Okay,
well, right? So then, but I think where we sort of got disjointed is after the 50, you start remitting to you.
yeah,
What I didn't, plainest terms, what I didn't want to happen is we're remitting total use fees to you, and then down the road, say, sorry, there's nothing left to reimburse you.
Yeah.
Sure.
but we're not on the same page because I thought you meant 50 every year. So, and I don't want you to read it like that on the fly. That's not fair to you or to me, and we don't want to play this out like this. I would need to get approval from, or at least okay from the council. But if you guys want to talk about that, we can talk about that offline. But it was to me, there's a $50,000. Let's see, do you have that? Yeah, that's
0.6.
yeah.
First, sorry.
So those every year, instead of say annually for these.
Read it, the plain language, it's a reserve fund, so the balance would be 50,000,
Okay,
which if you spend it, it'll go back to zero, then it wouldn't be 50,000. So I think the idea is that it's a reserve account, that has $50,000. And then once it reaches $50,000, then describe what to do next.
okay. Then I'll work on the proposed letter agreement to bring to the next meeting. So we're on the same page.
as soon as we can get that done, like one there. So I know this, I'm just trying to not have something.
Alright. Tab, 7E, that's the labor updating agreements between OPA and OPA. So this is in regards to the Ted sent an email regarding an opportunity, was a restricted NDA. And we've already got also email. It was to kind of talk about that some, this opportunity to go over it. Full disclosure, coming out of the meeting, we had that. It wasn't a board action or motion, but there was some general discussion of someone on this board having, signing a confidentiality agreement. And as chair, I came up to, me, I signed the confidentiality agreement, and had the discussion, do know a little bit more about it. I'm not gonna say anything. But want to leave it to Ted to kind of give his, overview of what he can say, and then we can have more discussion about it. So this would be good on the agenda about.
Yeah, so I brought this up to me and we discussed it briefly. Yeah, I haven't, there's nothing contractually done yet. But to start, I did, send, the company did send over, jobs. So starting in January 2027, it'll be 20 to 25 new jobs, if that's okay. And then they project up over a long period of about 50. So it's maritime in nature, and there is cargo movement, there's cargo storage, legal services, training work, that sort of thing. The reason that I put out those revenue share figures is because we are using for burden, and it's just discussed. A lot of variable revenue that open received from our operations on a per ton basis, right? This will have harming all, but not huge amount. And so that's well, what's fair? Should we share with them? Because, to be clear, I don't think this is outside the scope of what we do now. It's cargo handling, it's cargo storage, right? All of which activities that, we collect fees. I'll bring up another kind of X factors, if we bring in jobs and business to the port without a ton of structure. Almost all new business I'm looking at is going to bring in a function. Whether it's far from I saw you there. So that's where I'm at. Commissioner Taylor had a chance to look at the.
So and I want to, it's nothing toxic, nothing that's hazardous, nothing that's going to be a danger. But I do understand the concern with the confidential legality of it. But I understand economic development. There's that competitive nature, so there's got to be some level of confidentiality until deals are done and sealed. But I mean, it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity to bring in 120,000 a month, 50 towards, or sorry, 60 towards operations, 60 towards to the maintenance reserve. So again, it could be a great opportunity for us and of course the operator, and something that I feel for certainly exploring.
So I just wanted to also have the same opportunity to review the documents and have them signed again. And I think other board members, wanted to do the same, they should be given that opportunity. And so the way Sunshine Law works, if there's something like that, it's like competitive or, proprietary information. As long as it's not like emailed to all the board members, like there are standards for what can be redacted. Tammy could probably explain more articulate in more articulate terms, but because Chair Taylor has received a copy, all of that's already in play. So like somebody can get a public records request for it, and then it would have to be redacted, and a redacted version would be provided so that the confidential proprietary information can be redacted before it was given out. That's how it happens. So, um, I just wanted the same opportunity to see the please.
You know, I also add the somewhat complexity to it. The draft does involve non-OHPA sensitive. We are that are, so, yeah, the way I did it was, it's kind of a lump sum sort of thing. It involves port operations and then operations and leases outside.
That makes sense. I know that's true for a lot of the overall. Overall resources are being used for your operations. We know there's other resources that you're leveraging offsite. So that's always been true, but it's still public business if it's out of port.
Yeah,
The port is public business, so.
yeah, also, I mean, the motivation for this is really because there are things at the CDP house. I know we're going to match all for coming out on high training soon. You know, imagine grant funds and it adds up big time. And because it's not some big money maker location or so I'm looking for alternate ways, uh, that are outside what's normally been done to the possibility so that I can invest in able to do spend. That I'm able to invest in probably incorrectly. I'm able to invest in my own. We just took, we had 5 importance coming in this month. One warehouse took $94,000. It's tough. So, I mean, that's sort of the motivation. I'm thinking outside the box and trying to make all the dots connect and make this a mutually beneficial location.
And I see that. I mean, I see the benefit. I see our benefits. Again, with recurring revenue that we consistently talk about. We need a board director, the executive director of the board. This is that step closer to get us
That's why
business operations.
and that's why I think that the revenue share because it's a common theme in this room. The budget's constrained, as I thought, another 60 to open the budget. Now let's start for at least a year still something, that would help you all out. And maybe, another 5,000 a month to the maintenance reserve on, which you have to approve as well. You're going to come up with that.
This is not guaranteed yet. I mean, this is something that just, well, I mean, why are we signing confidentiality, agreements and all for something it's a vapor. You can see it for just a little bit. It may go away. It may not materialize. And we're talking about 2027.
Yes, sir.
Wow. To me, that's kind of what's going on here. Because you got, you know, air in your hand. You have any documents from them saying that we're intentionally done there? There's nothing, right? There's no guarantees.
That's right.
Absolutely nothing. But it's got to be something there for you to have the chair sign a confidentiality document.
Well, that only came up as the meeting. We were discussing, should we all know about it? If we, who should know about it, be able to, from the board, but, I mean, it was all a common discussion, that again, there wasn't a motion, there wasn't anything done, but I think to try and help the process said, oh, okay, well, it's mentioned, I think Mr. Cole mentioned, well, the chair can sign it.
Yeah, I assume it's not tight.
Yeah, but but again, it's part of, who's familiar with economic development, I'm sure Jerry Mitchell, has to sign NDAs all the time, and having discussions with trying to win a piece of business to come here to Nassau County. Same thing. I mean, in business, there's competitive nature, so you can't show your cards, because you're competing with another site. Uh,
And in some cases, that company is competing with other companies and their seat, so it's one of the.
This labor, I thought we had that discussion, they were just gonna be coming and doing work on best. Did I miss, did that?
They'll be doing that, we will be, and doing great.
Well, we done that for the dredges that come in, we allow them to labor 5, 6, 7 days to put new walkers on and stuff. We received a cargo, but, I mean, it wasn't anything.
But this
Top
is.
secret. Okay.
So the operating agreement for Bruce Carter, when that salvage vessel was there and the cruise ship over, that technically would have been an issue then. That they would enter into some sort of discussion and agreement as to how we share revenue from that. I think this is part of the money. I don't think.
Well, he's talking about this is half Carter hand. So, I mean, we handled cargo for Royal Caribbean when the cruise ship was there. We're the ones that received all of the food stuff for it. I mean, we set it on the dock, they came off and got it, but we had to unload it from the trucks. I'm kind of confused by why. What's that?
Labor thing, like if you're just providing a supply for folks, it's the same part.
Well, we were handling that cargo. I mean, you were unloading trucks, packing something, yeah. But anyway, I'm just trying to figure out, why, the top secrecy.
I've been more keep it confidential until such time that I haven't signed agreement with this entity. Then I'll. Oh yeah, it's there, it's problem. Yeah. But if we were to get marketing manager,
Yeah, I mean,
how would you do job creation and so there's nothing from a tech standpoint, you know, we will have operation is significant because now one berth is occupied by this entity. Well, now we're probably going to do 24 hours. We're down for some part of the year. And that, so the way it works now is if we, travel, the max you can feel is 3 days on a dock. So you got 2 days on one vessel, so you got 2 days on Yucatan, and you got 1 game on Summer's up. It's three games in time on. So it's 3 games in 24 hour period. What we do is we put 2 games all day, and then we work 1 game through the night. So during 24 hour period, you get the same amount, theoretically, the same amount. But you do it with one, so you turn vessels fast. That's how we do it. That comes in pretty significant costs.
a big cost. Because you don't find that accident rates gonna go up.
Your inputs go up, and you've got 80 people who want to be compensated to work with that. So
There's a difference.
so
I mean, I understand all that, it's just that it caught me that this is something that's pretty much speculative for 2027. But yet, we've got it on our agenda for tonight to discuss.
So it's not being transparent before I actually do a submitted formal bid contract sign. I don't want to get involved. I don't want to be enough to mess up. So that's what I'm trying to be front.
that's awesome.
But you can't give us any information. That's what I'm stuck.
Stuff I see.
I mean, the supplements, you're in a couple months out. But yeah, one person got the information, the rest of us, I mean, to me, it sounds like it's just,
It's not issue at all.
no, well, anytime you address this board with anything that comes forward. I can tell you, that's,
You know, on the side note, I wish I had more free time, yes.
I mean, late birthday, you'll never win on, because anytime we just play active cargo, believe me, I went down there and it won't work out. Normally, folks that want to do that, this is just a tidbit. They have no allegiance. They have no loyalty. You'll find that out.
And the purpose that we put this on was not just for the potential new business. It was in general to make sure that the operator and all OPA commissioners are on the same page about labor thing, which is, as I understand it, forgive my naivete and be, is parking vessels at the port, but not handling cargo or warehousing. That is not covered by the operating agreement. And so, just so everybody understands that if that scenario happens, then there
What we do is stop the we point out.
that's something that it's not, this isn't my, although I put it on the agenda, it's something that commissioners have brought up to me. So if we're in disagreement about that, then it may not be an issue today, but it'll be an issue in the future.
The dark significance of weather. That's sort of.
I understand. Yeah, it's, so is, how do we want to, because it's been on some commissioners' minds, and is this something we want to just put aside for now? I was going to say park, but that would be a pun. Mhm.
So I think OPA has an interest in protecting its recurring revenue streams. And our inability to protect our recurring revenue streams is why we find ourselves in this difficult fiscal situation. So if labor thing is not covered by the agreement, which as long as I've been involved with OPA, the position of this board has been that that's not included in cargo handling. And so when the salvage policy was there, when the cruise ship was there, the board wanted a share of those proceeds and did not receive it.
So at the time, the predecessor felt was under the same,
No, he said, first he said we would talk about it, if some of this, there was an operating revenue. And then it became part of our partnership for some other issues we had. We'll end up settling the claim. As part of this 35 public records, the suit file exists. So
gotcha,
we just walk on the
gotcha.
if you don't engage and have an agreement at the outset, then you will not get any money. And so my advice would be to ask for some money. Ask for some money and ask for money that doesn't go to the CIMR fund that just gets rated. I'll go back to my normal volume.
It's not rated, it's the maintenance charges.
Any other comments regarding tax and the question?
Well, we haven't agreed to this yet. No, but it's just a proposal this time. So.
Yeah, it's a workshop, so we can't really.
I mean, but I don't really know where to go. It's just, the economic driver.
I mean, but we haven't agreed to it yet, so. Some of you.
It would be before you as something official, yeah.
Tab 7F, security services of the fourth perimeter.
I put this on here too, just again, so we're on the same page as we had Allied, we have Allied Universal 24/7 service at the port, and it's paid for by the operator. When we were in the position to renew or Allied Universal sent us a renewal contract for multi-year, not just a, 1-year renewal, then Ted, was saying, hey, wait a second. What is this about? And do we get a say? And so we decided to go out for RFP. That's what happened last. So I brought it up to say, is there anything, and this is directed to Ted, the board, commissioners, the RFP, we have already received at least two that I've just quickly seen in email responses to the RFP. So we're gonna have responses and choices to make. So is there any issue with the operator pays for the security services? The operator we did the RFP, right? So when it's time to choose, Ted and your staff, you guys are going to have the ability to provide comments and your opinion. So is there anything that's left here that's unclear about security services?
I think at certain time, if a decision is made, we do it in an open forum. That way the pros and the cons can be explained. And hopefully, the best decision will be made for the court, not for anybody else. Because, I won't go into it, but I'll have my say at that point. But look before you leave.
And I would submit to the board that any evaluation and it has to be done in a public meeting. Every bit of it. You all can make your own notes once you get, and oh, by the way, all of the proposals that come in, they are not public record. I mean, we can share them with the operator that we contract with, but they are not public record until such time as the board has announced that it's going to make a decision. So basically, when an agenda gets published, that's when people can start asking for the proposal. So that's when they come in, every bit of the discussion has to happen here.
Motion to 24. To close on.
That's tomorrow. Oh, no,
Friday.
Friday. Okay, that was it. And then I did put on here whether or not you want to go into,
I do have request that somebody make some kind of a rubric for um, comparing the proposals, because somebody asked about that, and
the
if
criteria for
Yeah.
evaluating.
for
proposals.
evaluation,
We didn't provide that up front,
no.
and so that's best practice, but we did, I mean, I don't know how. They're due on the 24th. Was the plan that it be our November meeting that they come here and do the evaluation?
If you want.
I
yeah.
don't know.
So
What's the pleasure of the board?
the board needs some kind of a criteria to look for when they're viewing every proposal, so that they can grade each one and then submit their tabulation to us, and that would be public, yeah.
I think the main reason this was brought out is just a price change, correct me if I'm wrong. Uh, Chairman, can't look in the future, but I will compel this commission to be cautious about the security. Because unless you've operated a marine terminal and you're dependent on that security force to be there in the difficult times, all that needs to be brought out. And we all need to understand that, because during the pandemic, it was tough. And I can tell you this, if you don't have a gate cover, you can't open it. So there's your limitations. So I look forward to the meeting when we discuss this, because I think there's some issues that need to be brought out, and we all understand. But I wanted to clarify with you, Ted, that was strictly just as a cost factor. It's not, no. Thank you.
The last was put on here because it is something that the operator working with OPA needs to update the 5-year capital improvement plan. And I wasn't expecting to do it tonight. It's something,
We can address that. I mean, I think, we collectively have been pushing behind the scenes, on state leaders to help us out. It's a big issue. I'm hoping that we can do soon, which is why, I don't really have anything to say, just that. Um, I've still got my fingers crossed, when it comes to some of that, which will all been planned and planned. At least that,
I know there's a deadline involved, this thing for, but yeah, it's fine. You have that.
it's a draft one. I won't be here. That's why I got.
And so for the remainder of the year, we just have, we have one meeting, and we have two meetings left. So we have one meeting in November. We've got,
November 12th.
November 12th, and then the following.
Oh, we don't have.
No,
Yeah,
it's it's November 12th, and then the second Wednesday in December, I think is like the 16th, or anyway, somebody can bring that up. I only worry about the next meeting, November 12th. So you will be here.
Well, it's
That's the first, it's just because of when the first, yeah.
One thing I want to say about it's just, is there any way we can move these to Monday?
um. So actually, so well, I wanted to bring that up to the board, but it was really because of, trying to find a better location, just acoustics, and I've, I have spoken with the, vice mayor of the city, just to see if he can, make some calls, talk to them to see if there's availability on different days. I know they can't do Wednesday, so that was, they have another, meeting on those Wednesdays. I don't even know what their policies are related to outside boards, organizations, to anything they know. So he was gonna get some information, get back to me, so I wanted to actually see if that was a possibility.
Can't wait. No, of course. Of course.
Oh, I get it, I get it.
No, no, the city can absolutely, there's no legal reason certainly why the city cannot do it.
Yeah.
There is, I do know at the city, they do allow other boards to use it. I know that they've had events there, but there has to be, because silly as it sounds, City Hall, where the chambers are, I'm assuming you mean, is key. The only access is by key. Now, they may have upgraded it to some kind of electronic access that helps, but right now it's a key. And it's a staff member that literally with the key opens and closes the door for any outside meetings. But I'm sure with Vice Mayor Askew, you guys can work that out.
Well, that's, yeah, he's finding all that, I'm just doing Wednesday, he was off table, so I was going to talk to the board before. It was really just a spitball conversation we had with him about it, and wanted to see if that, yeah.
We explored it before, and I forget why we ultimately didn't do it. It was some sort of conflict with all the other meetings.
It was probably because of Wednesday.
It wasn't the county at the BOCC thing, and that's why we could not change to another Monday, Tuesday, or Thursday, Friday. So Wednesday was the only at BOCC. But
So there's nobody, mind to, having that conversation, see if we find out.
Just not Friday, right?
No, I mean, I was honestly kind of hoping for Monday, Tuesdays, or we, but anyway, just, don't object.
Nobody objects.
Don't object.
I don't mean to, Mr. Chair, if you may, I don't want to forget. And this isn't to bring it up here other than to say it's allowed. And Commissioner Moore wanted to make sure this is with regard to the new tariffs that were adopted in 2022. Commissioner Moore by email asked the operator, Ted, if he could get a copy of what the tariff numbers were, and he named that he listed the tariffs. Ted was hesitant to do that because of the public record aspect. I understand that. I don't know what's trade secret, what's proprietary. I haven't had a chance to look. But that being said, nothing prevents, in fact, it's allowed with notice. Ted cited 10 days notice, but with notice in email, please, not just a phone call. If you need or would like access individually to inspect records of the operator, which include revenues and expenditures that have to do with the property, then you can do that. And you don't need to go through me. You just need to do it with, I would copy Rosanna, but you just provide notice. Do you have anything else you wanted to add to that? So as of today is Commissioner Moore, just because we're here, is asking to have access October 30th. That's not exactly 10 days, but that's next Thursday.
10 days for
When you asked.
the first,
Yeah,
first time.
right. So that's next Thursday. And if you guys want to work that out, then
Use that schedule something for us, and then still those, all those territories.
Yeah, send it to me. Just so you know. It's the tariff summary sheet with a tariff items.
Yeah, I think there are some. I was gonna be, there's a lie, and bullets, so.
is there, other than that way, if you want a different process, procedure, you want us to write down a little procedure for how to request it and the access and stuff like that? I mean,
It may be nice to know that you don't have to.
well, I mean, the why is gonna be oversight and it's gonna be, we've laid it out here every meeting just about, right? There's an acrimonious relationship, not that we want it, between OPA and the operator. It doesn't have anything to do with you personally, or since you've been here, it's bad blood and we're having to make all of this up. And I mean, from all kinds of information that was not provided to this board, and the use of public property, and it was offensive. And being a member of the community throughout that, it was offensive. And I don't read the newspapers, and I was offended. So, anyway, that's what it is. And we're rebuilding.
It's a general, uh, we figured out that we figure out between the, you have nothing to do with any specific, allegation or any information that I don't. It's just, again, how much is being collected, last.
So we know there is, education, a meeting, a hearing on.
Monday. Yes.
And, you were going to ask if someone else could attend, if I had time.
Yes, it would be best. It's important, the hearing. It is by Zoom. It's at 10 a.m. on Monday. Is there a volunteer?
This is for the tax. Yeah.
Yeah. It's from 10 to 11, and I can send a Zoom link to whoever.
I mean, when I have to look, I read all.
Understand.
You need somebody, good, I will go.
Sat out on, it's over 11:30. It's like Zoom or.
How about this? I'm going to invite the notice of hearing to everybody. And please, at least one of you attend.
And, are we going to have a shade meeting to talk about what is settled tonight?
Yes, we are. And I would say that you know what, let me just go ahead and announce it now because I can unannounce it, right? And that is, let's plan on having, if you guys are, if commissioners, you are available. Our next meeting is November 12th at 5 p.m. A shade meeting regarding the property appraiser case. That's not a definite. I have to do an agenda and everything. And it is a closed meeting that we do behind closed doors. But just because I want to make sure that the operator who's paying bills is aware of what we're doing, to talk about what the settlement, we have to go to a mediation and talk about what things we might discuss at mediation. And so if we don't have one, if we're not gonna have a shade meeting, I'll tell everybody at, you know, when we have our meeting November 12th, but you have to announce it publicly before,
So, candor closed session?
it is, that is, it's a private confidential, it's an exemption under Florida statutes, but guess what? At the end of all of it, after everything's done and even the 30-day appeal period, there has to be a court reporter in that secret meeting. And then that transcript is public record.
And just to be clear, I'm not.
You're not allowed to by statute because it's a sunshine law thing, but there are certain things that Derek, Bruce, and I are going to discuss with you anyway, but it won't necessarily be that meeting. But if there's settlement and stuff, obviously, the operator, you've got to be on board.
10 o'clock, Wendy, where?
It's on Zoom. It's on the computer. Don't even have to leave your house. Okay, I'll send that to everybody. At least wear a shirt if you're gonna have the camera on. And one time I do have a funny story about this, and everybody has funny stories about Zoom, but at
Do we
a,
need to adjourn before you tell us stuff? Okay.
Jeez, sure, and you get a cat.
that's happened, but I've had board members when we were meeting, not city commissioners, but appointed board members that weren't paid, that were drinking wine out of a wine glass, and I was thinking, they couldn't even put it like in an opaque cup. It was a wine glass and they had the stem and we were having a good time.